Hi. Thank you, Samah, for that introduction. And thank you, Shahid. That's hard to come second to. Thank you for having me. They asked me to talk about my journey, and I find it's a little, it's interesting to talk about it, but I just want to start by saying a journey is, it starts and it doesn't stop, and it's always a little weird to be asked to talk like you've made it or you've done it. I just want you all to know it's all a process, and it's still very much a process for me. So when she sits there and she says that I'm the strongest woman she knows, she's not telling the truth. But I appreciate it anyway. I guess I'm gonna start with when I was 25. I'm 35 today, so 10 years ago, and take you back to a younger version of myself living in a big city known as New York. I was working on Wall Street at the time, and I was working in a law firm. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer because that's what parents told us to do. Because, if you're an engineer or you're a doctor or you're a lawyer, they're so happy and they're all proud of you. And, if you're an artist, they're like, oh, poor baby, and, So I was working on Wall Street, and I remember Barack Obama had just gotten elected, and there was this aura of hope everywhere. And I worked a bit on that campaign, and I remember I enjoyed it. And I was working in this law firm where people were making a lot of money, but were very, very unhappy. And the recession hit, and I got laid off. And I'll never forget this, because when I got laid off, I was probably the only one in the office not crying. And they thought I was a little weird. And they were like, you just got fired. And I'm like, I know, but this was hell. Like, this is good. And I don't know why I didn't have the courage to leave it. Life kind of pushed me, and, there were layoffs. And I realized, all right, here I am. I'm 25. What do I want to do with my life? It was the first time where, I was on government employment. I was living on a friend's mattress in the Lower East Side. And my parents were like, come back to Lebanon, you'll get married. And I said, no, I want to stay here. I'm American Lebanese, so I had the opportunity and the luck to stay there. And I got to say this, probably thought at the time, I was 25, thought this was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Like, I felt like such a big loser. And I had a nice, close group of friends that told me, no, you'll get through this. And I said, I'm never going to find a job, and I don't know what I want to do with my life. And one day, my cousin's visiting from Dallas, and he's like, listen, we're going to go to Fox 5. It's a news station. You should come. I said, okay. And I walked into this news station, and one of his friends was anchoring the news. I swear to God, I don't know what overtook me. I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And he was like, shh. You said you wanted to do law, you just got your master's, now you want to be a journalist. I said, no, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be a journalist. I was 25, and I remember, in Lebanon, we have this thing where parents push us to be like the best of ourselves when we're very young. So by 19 or 20 and you're graduating with your bachelor's, you're going to do, biochemistry or astrophysics or some shit, that your parents are going to be super proud of. And there I was at 25, really not knowing what I wanted to do, but I found my calling, and I called my mom, like 10th call that she dreads. And I'm like, Mom, I'm going to be a journalist. And she goes, Richard's my dad. She just passed him the phone. And I'm like, Dad, that's it. I think I know what I want to do. I want to be a journalist. And he goes, okay, are you coming back? I said, no, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to see what I'm going to do. So, no journalism background. I had a master's in political science, international relations, international business, but NYU, which is the school I attended, had a journalism program. And one of the professors teaching was the vice president of NBC News. So I got his email, And I said, hi, do you want to have coffee? Totally thinking I'm flirting with him, but I'm like, let's have coffee. So he meets me for coffee, and I said, I'd like to attend your course, if that's okay. And he goes, why? I said, I'm interested in journalism, so if it's okay, I'd like to attend your course. He's like, sure, attend. It was a 3-month course, and I loved it, and I was able, with that course, to do a little bit of journalism, like, report on stories, etc., and make a reel. A reel is basically a montage of little pieces of stories that you put together, and it's kind of like a journalism resume. And I was able to make a reel, and then I started sending it everywhere, including to Future TV in Beirut that had an English newscast. And I remember I sent it, and I wanted an internship. I was here for the summer. I wanted an internship. And one of the ladies who's actually sitting in this room says, hey, yeah, I remember you from AUB. You should totally come in for an internship. And I'm like, okay. So I went in. It was a 2-month internship, and I was able to make another reel, a news reel. You sit there, you tell the news, you're editing the news, people read what you're writing. And I was talking to her, and I said, can you make sure the CEO sees this? She's like, I'll make sure he gets it, etc. I'm like, okay, I think I want to move back to Lebanon. And she's like, okay, but there's no job opportunity yet. I said, but this is what I want to do, and it's better to be in Lebanon than to be, focusing on the missing cat in Brooklyn or whatever, the fire in Mississippi. They have really weird stories here. Here, I remember at the time, it was like 2010. So it was like Hezbollah in Israel, and it was, you want to be where all the action is. And she's like, okay, sure, but I can't promise a job. It's not up to me, but I'll make sure he gets your reel. And I moved back end of 2010, and in 2011, I have no news. I'm calling. I have no news from the CEO. And I just show up. I just go to the office. And I'll never forget this because the secretary was there. And I'm like, hi, is Mr. Ramzi here? She's like, no, he's out today. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll just wait. And then she's like, well, it may take 4 hours. I'm like, oh, wait. After an hour, I think she felt sorry. So she's like, he said he'll meet you tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay, great, okay, so I'll come back tomorrow. So I come back the next day, and I said, hi. He's like, hi. I'm like, remember me? He's like, yes. I'm like, I want a job. He's like, well, you're in luck. We actually have a position. I'm like, oh my God, really? He's like, but it pays $750 a month. I'm like, oh, that's great. He's like, okay, well, sure, yeah, there you go. I'm like, oh, that's great. I go back home, and I'm like, Mom, I got a job. It pays $750 an hour. She's like, oh, sorry, a month. I wish, yeah. She's like, Richard. She always goes, yeah. And my dad was my mom was like, we put her through college for $750 a month. And he's like, it's okay. It's a start. It's a start. And I just got to say that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it wasn't just Future TV. It was all the doors that it opened. And this is really what I want to talk to you about today. It's that the journey led me here, and Future TV opened doors, but you kind of have to utilize everything bad that happens to you and turn it into a good. And I remember at the time, everybody was like, you're crazy to come back to Lebanon. This is not a place you want to be. You might as well stay out there. And I remember saying, but I'm sure there are things in Lebanon that I can do that I can't do anywhere else. And I always felt like in New York, you're like a small fish in a big pond. But here, how many people were anchoring the news in English? How many people could you actually touch? How many people could you reach out to? And, examples of that were that Future TV helped me anchor and present the news, but it also gave me a platform for interviews, which would turn out to be a big step in my career. Interviews were very important to me because it got me to talk to people, and it showed more of my personality. Because when you're just sitting there and you're like, in Iraq today, 50 people blew up, and terrorists are everywhere, and but when you're interviewing somebody, it really allows you to get close to who they are. It really allows you to extract something that's interesting. And I loved it because it was never like, oh, question 1, question 2. It was literally like I'd forget the whole world. It was just me and the person, whether it was politics, social, culture, and I was able to have a discussion. And I realized, hey, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. Because when you're unemployed And sometimes your family goes against you. Sometimes your close friends comes against you. Sometimes your boss goes against you because people put you down in this life. It's just natural human instinct. It's hard, it's very easy to believe you're not good enough. And the reason I started by saying, this happened when I was 25 is that I'm 35 today and definitely in a better place than I was when I was 25. But there are days I still get up and I'm like, what am I really doing with my life? I feel like such a loser. And I don't think it's a woman thing. I think it's a human thing. And people don't talk and don't say it enough, that it's okay to feel that way. And I wish when I was going through everything I was going through, somebody came and told me, what you're going through is okay. You may not have all the answers, but keep going. You may not have it all figured out. There are days you may not feel it's good enough. There are days your own mother will put you down. There are days your own boss, your own friends will put you down for whatever reason. But it's okay. It's okay because you'll prove them wrong and another day will come and there will be opportunities. But you gotta keep your eyes open for them and you gotta know how to get a hold of them. I'll give you an example. March 8 is a political party in Lebanon. And I remember in 2011, before Instagram and hashtag International Women's Day became a big thing, March 8 was considered, it was known to be International Women's Day in the US, but here it was still not a very big thing. And I remember I'm like, okay, what if on March 8, we actually had a bunch of women come in and we interviewed them and we called it the Inspirational Women Series. And we showcased women that are making it happen for themselves. And I stayed 6 years at Future TV, and we had 6 series of inspirational women. And actually was probably the interview series that I did that ended up opening the most doors to me, because then I got asked to go to speaking conferences. I got paid for that, a little bit more than $750 a month, which was great news. I became an international correspondent for CGTN, which is a Chinese TV, and by the way, they speak English. And Turkey, TRT World. I was able to get a job at the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I did things that would have never been possible in New York, and I did them in this country. So when people tell you you can't, when people tell you there are no opportunities, that's not true. That's not true. And they're gonna tell you that because it may not be working for them, but you can make it work for yourself. And I think what Samah was saying is, yeah, okay, easier said than done. It is easier said than done, but you've got to, because what other choice do you have? The road to success is paved with ups and downs. It's supposed to be that way, and the downs can be brutal, and you're gonna feel like you're not good enough. There are days I still feel that, and I think that's probably gonna be the case for forever. There are days where you wake up and you're like, I'm Superwoman today and I can take on the world. But there are days where you're like, the world is taking me on and I don't know what to do. And I guess what I'm telling you is what I really need to hear myself. So one day you'll all remind me that I said this, okay? That it's okay to feel inadequate sometimes. It's okay to feel like you're not worthy sometimes. But the truth of the matter, you are. And we all have a calling and we all have a path that we need to take. And you know what? It may not be linear. It's not gonna be engineering all the way to becoming, I don't know, or doctor to becoming the next Marie Curie, but there's a place for everybody here. And you gotta find it, you gotta fight for it, and you gotta believe in it. No matter what, you gotta believe in it. And don't worry, because even if today's hard, there's always tomorrow. And you'll live another day, and you'll wake up standing, and it's a new chance. And do not let your failures define you. And I think that's the one thing that I always had, even when I was unemployed on government money. I think I always said to myself, this will not be my story. My story doesn't end here. Like, I will not be defined by this broken relationship or this broken friendship or being fired or, not feeling pretty enough. I will not be defined by this because it's just one chapter in my story. And there are so many more chapters, and I can't wait to write them. And you know what? If you don't believe in me, F you. So that's it.